It's an exciting week here on Seattle Seahawks Today. We have a team in Indianapolis covering the NFL Scouting Combine, and we are bringing you content all week long from John Schneider and several of your favorite top draft prospects who could potentially end up with your Seattle Seahawks. Subscribe now for the latest happenings on your Seattle Seahawks all this week as we cover the Scouting Combine and help us reach our next milestone of 50.5 thousand subscribers. Less than 200 subs away from reaching that next milestone. Like I said, all week long, we're going to be live tomorrow as well. And we'll get started with today's show. Thanks for stopping by here on Seahawks Today. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. You may have seen on the channel within the last couple of hours our full-length interview with Seahawks General Manager John Schneider. His press conference speaking to the media for the very first time since the Seahawks coaching staff was fully assembled. Encourage you, once you're done watching this video, to go watch that video. But what we're going to bring you today is kind of the highlights and give you a little analysis to what Schneider had to say, and we also have some clips that we're going to play you here in just a matter of moments as well. So let's go over the takeaways piece by piece. Number one, Geno Smith is the guy for now. That's the key words here. What you're about to hear from John Schneider isn't the most resounding endorsement for his quarterback at the moment. And maybe if we read between the lines, it kind of tells us where this thing potentially could be headed. But let's just say that John Schneider didn't give a whole lot of praise to Geno Smith necessarily. Check this out.
Yeah, I mean, I would think, yes, a starter until he's not. I mean, really, this our coaches aren't down here with us, guys. So we're basically, what we're doing is, we have a vision, we have a plan for what we're doing. Next week, when we get back in the office after kind of learning the landscape down here, talking to all the agents, all the other teams, what we're going to learn throughout the week, kind of coming around the corner next week, getting back with those guys, with the new staff, with Mike's staff in place, and then, getting our alignment and, really asking for patience from all of our players. It's, all the guys that are free agents and the guys that, are still like kind of, on the team looking to just talk to their position coach, and I'm sure those guys are doing that this week, and I know some guys have already reached out and everything, but really just finishing up the staff last, maybe Thursday or Friday. So
now, one of the things that I keep on reminding folks is that when you look back at Geno Smith's time as the Seahawks starter, remember, he was always Pete's guy. He never was John Schneider's guy. And John has never really spoke glowingly about Geno Smith. Pete Carroll stood by his side, do or die, right? And so now what I wonder as we enter this next chapter of Seahawks football, is John Schneider going to stay loyal to Geno Smith? How long is the leash there? Is he going to bring in a quarterback to compete with Geno Smith? Maybe it's through the draft. More on that in just a second. But certainly it leaves more head-scratching of sorts compared to what we knew from the previous regime under Pete Carroll. Let's ask you, is Geno Smith going to start week one for Seattle? What do you guys think? He's the starter for now, according to John Schneider. It's our pinned comment today. Weigh in, tell us what you think. Y for yes, in for no. Number two on our takeaways from John Schneider's press conference, drafting a quarterback seems more likely now than it was even within the last couple of weeks. I know that there was some skepticism about how likely that is with the Seahawks picking at 16, and then also with going with a defensive-minded head coach, but Seahawks GM John Schneider seems to like the quarterbacks in this year's draft class.
it's a good group. I don't know where you're going. It's a good group. Greg, I've told you guys in the past, having grown up in the Packer organization and worked for Ron Wolf, 14 drafts, only drafting 2 quarterbacks, is not something that we're necessarily proud of. It's just it's happened that way. Excuse me. And every year it's a goal to try to acquire a quarterback, and whether that's a draft, free agency, whatever it looks like. But yeah, this year's draft class is a cool group. A lot of variances in there.
Pretty fascinating to hear John Schneider say that he is kind of embarrassed of sorts that they've only picked 2 quarterbacks in a 14-year stretch. And so then the question becomes, what would Seattle potentially be looking for in a quarterback? Both what they're trying to stay away from and also what they're looking to get as far as the strengths go. And John Schneider's evaluation of the process was pretty interesting. Here's more from Schneider.
Interceptions, low ball carriage, ball coming out, how they handle themselves in the pocket, people that aren't confident in their abilities. I think you just look at the guys, the way they handle themselves through a football game. When you see guys play live, it's really important to see how they interact with their teammates and to see how they respond to the really tough things that they've just gone through. So, you know, I know you hear people talk about corners all the time. Can they turn the page and, you know, react to a play they just gave up or something like that, explosive play or something? But quarterbacks, same thing, you know, and how they interact with their teammates when they come off the field, how they're interacting with the quarterback or the head coach. And yeah, just that calm, steady, competitive field vision, tough, competitive.
We've talked a lot about the regime change going over from this Pete Carroll era to the John Schneider and Mike Macdonald era of Seahawks football. And I think one of the things that we'll see from John Schneider, you know, he put his stamp by hiring Mike Macdonald, not going with the status quo with a guy like Dan Quinn, right? I get the feeling, listening to John Schneider, he wants to go find his quarterback. If he can get him this draft, he likely will. Who's the quarterback you'd like to see Seattle draft? Of the options available out there, who would you like to see in a Seahawks uniform in 2024? Weigh in the comment section and let us know what you think. Today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the place to go for daily fantasy made easy. Here's how it works. Choose 2 or more players in any given category, whether it's fantasy points, maybe it's strikeouts or hits in baseball, maybe it's rebounding and points in basketball. Mix and match different leagues. Prize Picks is easy and fun to play along with. And I'm looking ahead to the start of the baseball season. I got the Rodriguez special. Grayson Rodriguez to have more than 180.5 strikeouts for Baltimore, and Julio Rodriguez to have more than 168.5 hits for your Seattle Mariners. Play along with me. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Promo code CLNS for a $100 deposit match. The link is in the comments and description of today's video. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Promo code CLNS for a $100 deposit match. Play along with us today. Next up, let's talk about the bromance of sorts between John Schneider and Mike Macdonald. And you can see why John Schneider found his guy in his affinity for Mike Macdonald and what he brings to the table, specifically the energy element of things. Check this out from Schneider.
His enthusiasm, his intelligence. He had a lot of energy. He had a lot of presence. When he came through the building, everybody felt him in the building. It was really important for us to bring the candidates in and have them experience what, you know, we viewed as, and this is not an arrogant thing, but it's just kind of like the firepower that we have in the building, and whether that's sports science, you know, our analytics group, equipment, you know, player personnel, obviously PR. But no, he came through. Excuse me, spent a ton of time with everybody, and everybody really enjoyed their visit. So yeah, he's got a bright future. I look forward to trying to hook up with him down here and get caught up.
I think one of the questions that Seahawks fans may have been asking themselves when you hire a 36-year-old head coach, what's the kind of maturity level of sorts? How much of a leader can you be at that age? But Mike Macdonald has certainly shown that, according to John Schneider, that maturity level.
Yeah, he gives you a look, yeah, but then he can snap out of it, and he kind of looks at you like, what, you know. So, but I have one of those too, so we're kind of trying to get to know each other. He's got a much better sense of humor than like all the background people gave him credit for. He's very well read, and you know, I told one of the coaches who was coming to interview with us. I was like, yeah, he's like a 36-year-old guy that has the maturity of a 60-year-old, and he's like, great. I'm turning 60 next month, and I have the maturity of a 36-year-old, so maybe this will work out.
So a 36-year-old head coach, and I hear energy and maturity. I like all that from Seahawks head coach Mike Macdonald, as well as the X's and O's side of things, which we know he's just a genius, been compared to Sean McVay, like Sean McVay of defensive sorts. So all of that sounds good. Speaking of defense, that's where we find our number 4 takeaway. I would expect major changes on this defense, and not just in how these guys are coached, but I would think that we're going to see some big personnel changes ahead over the coming weeks. And John Schneider talked about how Mike Macdonald wants this defense and what their vision is going forward. Check it out.
Mike is a very clear-thinking, highly intelligent guy that can, was just super impressed in the short, speed dating time we did with his wife, Steph, and, be able to have a really strong conversation with somebody and then kind of jump into a different conversation that's a little bit more lightheaded and then get back to business real quick. That was something that really stood out. So I can imagine the conciseness of his teaching when he's in a room with, a defense with a team.
Seahawks need to get back to being a physical football team, and it starts with getting the defense right. They got the right man to lead them to that direction of where they want to go. What's your confidence level that Mike Macdonald is going to fix this defense in Seattle? I don't think it's going to be overnight. It's going to take time, but I am a believer that Mike Macdonald's the right man for the job. Scale it for me in the comment section, 1 through 10, how confident you are feeling there. Last on our list, trust the process. It seemed kind of odd that the Seahawks coaching staff is not at the draft combine, that it's John Schneider and the scouting department. They are there. Mike Macdonald is still putting stuff together with the coaching staff. So what does all this entail? Schneider kind of laid out what's ahead for the Seahawks over this next week.
It's really more the person than the football part. Obviously, when we're interviewing the players, there's certain things that can stand out. We never really think our philosophy is that we don't feel like we have all the answers. Even when they come in the building, we're still learning these guys. So, we're trying to figure out, how to build the questions upon questions to dig further into the person and understand the person. So when they come into the building, we're able to help them out as much as we possibly can. Football, personal character, nutrition, the whole nine.
And you look at that with the draft process, it's fascinating to see that the way things have gone this direction, that this combine, we're seeing more teams not send their coaching staffs to the combine, that they're doing it this way. So I'm not concerned at all. John Schneider ultimately is going to have the final say and be making these decisions. So I trust him, and I think he's earned the right to have that trust with how well he's handled this offseason so far. More from Schneider.
I think that's kind of where it's going. Over the years now, the last several years, there's been a lot of staffs that have not come down, or some of the coaches have just kind of come down for the interviews, or our personnel staff does a great job of filming the interviews, getting the questions we want answered in the videos, and then throughout the process as well into the spring, all the Zoom interviews that we do, we're constantly studying those. And so the dynamic with Pete in particular and Mike is not. It's a true partnership, so that part's not going to be different. It's going to be, our personnel staff kind of learning these coaches, understanding what's important to them, and letting them, have the trust in our system and, the processes that we've developed over the last, 15 years.
The Zoom meetings and all of that, everything will come into place. And we've seen Schneider and company do a really good job of drafting the last couple of years, so no need to kind of rock the boat. I'm pretty confident things are going to be okay for this draft cycle. Thanks for joining us here on this edition of Seahawks Today. Subscribe now as we continue to cover Scouting Combine all week long, and we'll see you next time.